Bonjour, mes amis. I think I did that one right.
Oui,
That was
trop bien,
yeah, Google
bon.
Translate special. Yo, like we go through how many years? Like 9 years of French education. I still can't say the first word of French. I can say bonjour, and that's about it.
That's good enough, bro. You know, if as long as you get the accent down, like people think you speak. If they don't speak the language and you can say like one sentence with a good accent, like people think you speak that. It's like when I speak Spanish,
Just
bro.
fake it till you make it, I
Yeah.
guess, bro. Like, anyways, welcome back. I found the funkiest outfit I could find. We had a lot of great bucket hat comments. I got this one at the top of Cristo in Rio de Janeiro, which is one of the seven wonders of the world. So I felt it'd be pretty cool to wear. It's got like I don't know how much you can see. It's got some sloths on it, some monkeys. It's got like a toucan, very fancy. It doesn't really fit my head, but it is what it is. And it's like 11 p.m. at night, and I'm wearing sunnies because it just goes with the fit. And to make the fit worse, I wear my Leafs jersey because like my entire fan base is so down bad right now,
You
bro.
guys are
Like,
down bad.
yo, it is tough. But the Jays scored 6 runs today for the first time in a month, and you don't know what that does to a man, bro. Like when you can't see your team scoring 6 runs for a month, it's crazy. So it's a big day. It's a big day, my friends.
Nice.
We're gonna go through today. We got some cool stuff for y'all today.
Yep.
So there's a lot of drama this week about NAIC, and I know all of you saw it. We were kind of in the midst of it as well. We're gonna kind of walk through that. We're gonna go through the invite structure this year. Liam tweeted something very thought-inducing today about what the invite structure was. He had some very interesting comments about it. So we'll kind of go through that, what it's been in the past, what we'd like to see in the future, and then if we have a little bit of time, we'll go into what the meta is this weekend. And spoiler alert, it's Charizard. So
Yeah. So might guess that if we, because I think we're gonna have Anil and I have a lot prepared. I think on ideal world structure, some issues with the current system, how we think it can improve, plus the NIC stuff, which I think is just more interesting. Like I think you don't need to hear us say Charizard's good, but if there's time, we'll tell you Charizard's good. So
yeah, like I'll tell it to you in every different language you get. Just beat Charizard. That's it, bro. All right, so let's hop into this.
yep,
So NAIC happened this week. We debuted a new system,
yep,
which involved more of a like I would say like a two-step authentication
yeah,
process is the way I'd say it. It's like when like Google bothers you like 8 times to verify it's you when you sign in.
yeah.
Is basically what happened. Very interesting, different take. I know they wanted to ease the load on RK9 a little bit. What are your initial thoughts on it? I know you had some troubles initially. Kind of take us through that.
Yeah, I think I understand what they're going for in the sense that like it's a little strange that you don't register for Pokemon tournaments like on Pokemon's website. Like it's kind of weird that you need to know that you have to go to Arcanine. So I get that. Like I understand that's what they're going for, but using a new system for like the biggest term of the year, like that didn't seem the most well tested, and they didn't communicate properly like how it worked. Like you had to log out and log in. Like that is not intuitive. Like I've never used a platform where you have to do that. You always just refresh. So like at first everyone thought like the site just wasn't live until everyone figured that out. So it just seems strange to me that it wasn't tested properly. It wasn't communicated properly. It's also still strange that you have to go through Arcanine to register again too. Like why am I not just registering on one platform? So the whole thing's strange to me and felt unnecessary. The only thing I'll say is like it makes sense that they want to like I don't know make registration more streamlined like on their website or whatever. But other than that, yeah, I thought it was a
Yeah.
pretty big failure as a rollout. Like regardless of spots, just the system itself.
Yeah, and we've been around this community long enough to know that no matter what happens when there's a change, people will be pissed off.
Yep.
That is the nature of what this is. It's the nature of the internet. That is what it's going to be. I think this one, like, there are some times where I'll sit in this podcast and I'll say this was stupid. This was blown up way beyond proportions. This is not one of those times. I think everybody's justified to be kind of angry. I saw a lot of cussing, a lot of capitals. I don't think I was that mad, but like I understand why people were upset, and I agree with you. I think it was a very interesting time to debut this. I
Yeah.
think there's probably a better way to go about it.
Yeah, I think just they should have saved that for a regional or something, or just saved it for next season. Just didn't feel necessary. But yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's besides the point. So I think the main problem, like everyone's talked about, is that NAIC did cap again. I think no one expected any different. But I think the big disappointment from the community is why have we not increased capacity? Like why is NAIC the same number as like Orlando regionals, for example? And
Hmm.
it's not an excuse of like now they can say, oh, like we came back from the pandemic, we weren't sure what the numbers were going to be like. Well, it's like you know what the numbers are going to be like. You've seen the past couple of years. So to me, it's just like it's kind of like inexcusable at this point that like they don't have increased registration. Like the venue they picked is massive. Like that's not the issue. It's not venue. I understand there's logistics. Like you got to get like more tables, more chairs, like more judges. But from my understanding, it's like there's a competitive process to apply to become a judge for an IC. So it doesn't seem to me like that's an issue. it just seems like for whatever reason, like they just don't want the tournaments to get bigger than this. That's kind of my feeling. Like I don't know, Neil, what do you think? What is your feeling?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I tweeted something out like a bit ago about like an NAIC two, and I remember going into the season there was a few rumors about that, and some people were saying they moved up NAIC so they could have NAIC two later in June. As much as that was a meme, I actually think I like the idea. Maybe not specifically Columbus and New Orleans, as I feel like that is a clear disparity in where people will want to go. But having one and two, man, like if you can't fit all these people under one roof, why not do it twice? And I think making it so that you can only register for one, but you ensure everybody gets into this tournament that matters to a lot of people, like invite wise.
Yeah.
I think it matters, and I think like we'll kind of walk into that, like the play point requirement and stuff. But I think that would be really good. That's my kind of proposed solution. I understand 6,000 people in one room is a logistical nightmare. You need extra security, extra tables. Got to rent out more halls. There's a lot of issues with like lunch and dinner and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
Checking in's a nightmare. I know they're doing check-in at the airport this year, so that's also really interesting. So that's my proposition. I say just put it in two different places, and or just cap ICs. So you can only go to 3 ICs a year. We don't care which ones you do, but it's only 3.
Yeah, so I think the ideal solution is more space. I think that's like everything we're about to talk about after this. Like that is a solution that just solves all of this. But for whatever reason, I guess it's not feasible now. But I also just think it's like strange that like it's the same size as regionals. I don't know, that's just weird to me. And it's like, yeah, like why would we get a bigger venue if we can't have more space? So and I think the other thing too is when you have a cap, like people always say like, oh, it feels bad that like they don't save your spot, you have to put in your credit card. Oh, it feels bad, like I'm there right away. It's like no matter what system you use for registration, like someone's gonna miss out. Like if you do lottery, someone will miss out. If you do our current system, someone will miss out. It just feels bad no matter what. So from just like a consumer experience point, like it just feels bad. And I think we'll get into this as well. It's just like NAIC is like debatably the most important tournament on the circuit. Like it's the last one of the year. Like people who are trying to finish off their invites, try and go for like day 2 invites, like top 16, top 22 or whatever. This is like the most important tournament for that. So like if you play a whole year and like NAIC is like you need that to finish off your invite, for example, like and you don't get in, like that just feels horrible. Like you just wasted like your entire year, all those tournaments you went to, and like you just didn't get to play. Like I'll give myself as an example. Like I'm like I think 17th at the time of recording this in like NA. So like I'm like right there for like that top 16. Like I didn't get in wave 1. So like I had to get in wave 2. It's like if I don't get in, it's like that just feels so bad for me. Like my whole season kind of like it doesn't go to waste. Like I obviously enjoyed playing all my tournaments, but it's like that just feels bad. And like to be honest, like I think that hurts the competitive integrity of the circuit. That like the top like someone like who's trying to go for like a top spot here, trying to make worlds. If you're at like 500 points, for example, it's like you don't get the chance to like compete for that. Like it just doesn't feel good. And we'll get into that, like how we think maybe they need to restructure how like the whole circuit works. But to me, that's just some of the, like my biggest issues with like not allowing everyone to play at this tournament.
Yeah, and that's like what we see too, right? Like we are obviously we've been playing this game for a while. Like we're pretty competitive with it. What we don't see are all the new players who also want to play the game.
100%.
And this really got brought to my attention. Like one of my buddies also wants to go, and he hasn't played an IC before. And this guy's fighting for his damn life to get into NAIC against all these super sweats like you and I, who've done this a million times. Well, I guess not with this new platform, but it feels almost unfair. Like it feels like a lot of the time there is an argument for both sides. Like obviously like, we want the competitive people to be there. That's kind of our perspective of it. But I can also understand the new player perspective. Like you're not ready at 8 p.m. Central on a random Wednesday night to sign up. Like you maybe just want to sign up later.
Yeah.
And I think the 2 NAIC thing solves that problem. Like it doesn't even have to be called NAIC 2.
Okay.
Like make a 4th IC, only a 10-3.
Okay, but like
That's
if you have like 2 NAICs happen at the same time, like I feel like it loses prestige because like half the good players are at one, half the good players are at the other. It's like it's not really a true IC. Like unless you somehow like you do them separately and you combine for day 2 or something, like you play day 1 in different spots and then you combine after. I mean that's one thing we've done in the past. Like I don't know why they didn't do it last year, but I think they did the year before. It's like they do 2 pods where it's like they'll put you in like the blue pod or the orange pod, and it's like 2 tournaments that are different, and then you just converge for like day 2. So to me, that seems like a good way to maybe manage the load. But if you're a judge or you're someone who's like really like plugged into like the Pokemon structure, I'd love if you comment and like kind of let us know if you think it's feasible. Like, is there enough judging and staff for that?
Well, I think like splitting it up isn't really that big of an issue because even if you like double the capacity, you're still like unsaturating the good players, right? Like either way. So I don't think it's a huge like logistics issue. I think either way, you're probably gonna have an equal amount. Like unless like people like coordinate to be like, okay, let's all go here, let's all go there. You're probably gonna have an equal amount of good distribution of players at both. And obviously, like, there's going to be a lot of points going around. That'd be my one concern about it. There's a lot of points going around. You'd have to almost like dumb it down a little bit, but I don't
Yeah,
know how you address that otherwise.
but I mean, like the whole point of an IC, I think, is that like you get all the best players from around the world competing for like the IC crown. So like I think it's kind of like lame if we like don't have everyone at the same spot like playing, like you know,
Yeah,
like it.
I just don't see how you fit 6,000 people in one room. I just don't see how that works.
I mean, there's like lots of like conventions that I feel. I mean, we already do kind of do that with like all the video games like VGC, Go, like what's the other one called? Unite, like all together. Like we have tons of people, and the venues can do it. Like I think Pokemon just needs to like work towards it. Like I feel like they could achieve that eventually. Like I don't think it's like that unrealistic. Like
I think like 4K, 4.5K is achievable.
yeah,
I don't know about six.
yeah,
Like,
that
I
might.
don't think we can do
I
six.
mean, like we also see in Japan, for example, it's like they have like 15K trying to register for their tournaments, and like they cap it at 3 all the time. But then we also saw this week, I saw that like Yu-Gi-Oh had like an 8,000 person tournament. So it's like it definitely is doable. I agree. It's a logistical, like you got to scale it up. It makes it very difficult, but I just think like right now with the way the structure's set up, with ICs being this important, like it's just feels too bad and like unfair that like not everyone gets to play at like the most important tournament of the year, like besides Worlds. So
The other thing I would say as well is I think you have to change the IC point structure because like if there's 4,500 people in this tournament, you're fighting for top 256. That feels terrible, right? You're not going to have 4,500 people in Brazil, but you will here in North
yeah,
America, and you probably would in Europe too if you opened it.
yeah, we'll talk about that later. I think when we talk about the point structure and the issues I have with it and like the importance that ICs currently have, but maybe just to like cap off this discussion before we move on to like the circuit kind of structure, like what's your opinion on priority registration? So like, do you think everyone should have the same chance to register, or do you think like some people do deserve to have kind of priority when we register for these?
Yeah, I think the way they did it this year was a step in the right direction. I don't know why it was only rolled out to under 18 or whatever it was. But I think that's a step in the right direction. There are people that I think are more involved in the game that you want to reward. So like those people that are close to their invites, you obviously want to reward them for being as far and being a good customer. So you're interested in rewarding those people, and I don't know why it hasn't happened already. Where those people have not an advanced registration, but they maybe could like they have like a certain number of reserve spots or whatever it is, right? I think that's important. But I don't really understand this whole under 18 top play point you get priority reg thing.
So I
Like,
think like I think our good friend like of the pod, Mike Fouché, tweeted that I think juniors and seniors, like I think they should get. I think juniors and seniors should get priority reg. I think they should always get to play. I think
mhm.
especially since like kids, like they don't get to maybe play as many tournaments. Like their parents might be like, this is the one big tournament you get to do. I think for the growth of the game, it's really important that we keep the younger age divisions engaged. So I'm completely fine that the younger divisions like get priority reg. Like even then, they'll only be like 400 to 500 seats maybe total. Um, and then I do think that there's been a lot of talk this week in the community, but is it elitist that like people with more points, for example, like championship or play points, like they get priority registered? Like I don't really think it is elitist. I think like I guess it depends on what your definition of IC is, but I think like an IC to me is like supposed to be like the pinnacle of competition, like besides Worlds, like where everyone around the world comes to play, like the best competitors are there. It's to showcase who the best players are. I just think like you want like the best players there, and I think like Pokemon themselves like already kind of says this. Like if you're top X in your region, like Pokemon gives you a travel reward and like priority registration. So Pokemon clearly does think that like if you are ranked high enough in some metric they use that you should get priority registration. And I just think like if someone has been like devoting their whole season, like getting championship points, like if they're like let's say like 400 points or like 500 points, if you choose that the cutoff, like I do think they should get a chance to register first. I think it's like not even just Pokemon, like any industry, like your most loyal customer base, the people who are most devoted, like they normally get more perks. Like if you're in university, like if your major, like if a class is like for like a specific major to graduate, like the people in that major, like they get to sign up first, and then it gets released to
Mhm.
everybody else. And honestly, like I don't like we still have like 3,000 seats. I think if you reserve like even like let's say 300 for like the top X players around the world, like that's still like only like 10% at most. Like or you can even scale it down to like 5%. As long as you're leaving like a majority of the seats for everybody, I think it's fine to let people who are like the most devoted get those invites
Yeah.
first.
And of course, like, I think it's important for us to recognize, like, we obviously come from a place of
100%.
quote unquote elitism, right? In that sense, and what people are saying, like, but I also think that people have different situations. So, all people have different situations. I agree with you 100%. I think the people with the most championship points should be, maybe not priority entered, but like they should have a good chance of getting in. What I would say is, I think people at NAIC specifically have different situations. So, like, compare like you versus me, for example. So, you're going for the top 16 chase, like, you need these points. I have my invite. I'm not going for top 16. I don't really care.
Yep.
I'm just kind of there for vibes. I would be okay to give up my spot to somebody who maybe needed it more. And I remember like I brought this up with you casually. I'm like, bro, if I get in, you don't get in. Like I'll give you my spot. Like I don't care. Because like everyone's under a different situation. I think that's why it'd be so difficult to kind of quantify like who should get in versus who should not get in at that point. I think the only solution is to kind of bunch everybody up together in a certain pod. So it's like, all right, 400 plus CP. Here you go, priority reg. Under 400, whatever. You got to go through a certain hurdle to get there. I think that when you start to like break it down a lot to tiers, to like okay, 500 to 600, you sign up at this point. With 600 to 700, that's when you get into a whole bunch of trouble. So I don't think that's going to ever happen. But I think my take with the whole priority thing is I agree with you. I don't think it's elitism. I think people are kind of devoting their time to this and they should be rewarded. Like if I have an Amex Platinum card, I'm getting lounge access. I'm getting front row seats to the concerts because I'm a devoted person to that company and I pay them $800 a year to have a platinum membership. Do I have platinum membership? No, I'm not that devoted. So I, as a Cobalt customer, deserve the back of the line, right? Like I don't devote that much to that company, and I think the same can be said in Pokemon.
I think the other thing too is like Pokemon themselves. It seems like they're very pushing like for Pokemon to be more of a legitimized like esport. Like you see like their production values going way up. Like they do this like top like X in each region, get all this stuff. So it's like I think if you are pushing a competitive circuit where like the prize is or like the big thing is to go to Worlds, like for competitive integrity of your circuit, I do think like the best competitors need to be there. Now that being said, like Pokemon's expensive, it's a time commitment, which we'll talk about. So it's like some great players maybe they can only play NAIC, and I get that like that they might fall through the cracks of a system like this, but at the end of the day, like you can't please everybody, and I just think like I don't think it's like unfair to like just give a couple like people who are like the most devoted, like even people who have like the most play points, for example. Like I think that's like what they did for under 18. Like I think it's like fine. It's not like we're like shutting out most people from the tournament. It's like we're still like leaving like 95% of the space open. And at the end of the day, like I think a lot of people point this out, it's like the problem is we don't have enough registration for everybody. Like this is a problem that Pokemon has created. That's kind of like created this whole debate. But like under this like system, I think just like maybe even like I think Azul or someone says like leave the top 32 in each region, like they can get priority reg or something. I think that's completely fair. Like those are the people who are like I guess you can say like the top players are like they're devoted, and it's good for like marketing, like for saying that people are there. Like I don't know, like just imagine if like Tord wasn't at an IC, for example, because he couldn't get in. Like I feel like people would be like, oh, like it delegitimizes the IC because like the best player is not there, like the favorite to win isn't there. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like Pokemon also like has kind of set their structure to what it is. So they've said this basically with what their actions are. They say we're okay with all you guys spamming tournaments. We want that. Like we want that to be part of the World's Invite. And we'll get into this, right, with the whole World's Invite thing. But to your point, like a good player who relies on NAIC to get their invite, they're not really on top of Pokemon's priority list. They're not. Yeah. They're down there. Pokemon's saying, hey man, you should have traveled to more tournaments. You would have gotten your invite. And this is polar opposite of what this used to be. Right? Like you think of before the pandemic, I traveled once in my life to a regional before the pandemic. Was not a thing. Like I know some people who did it. It was never me though. And like I just didn't do this and most people didn't. This was not normal to go to 6-7 regionals a year. And obviously it's a volume thing. Like it's a huge volume thing. It's how much this game has grown. And to be honest with you, and I might look back on this in 6 months and say, damn, I was wrong. But I actually expect the game to go down a little bit next year in terms of player base, just because I think a lot of people are realizing this year that Worlds is not as obtainable as everyone may think. Again, we'll talk about this. But I think with cost of living, like prices are going up everywhere. There's a lot of like economic things going on in the world. Pokemon does this cycle where they go on this sinusoidal graph that goes up and down over 5 years. And I think we're kind of getting to that point where we might start to go down a little bit. So this may be a non-issue in the future, but I think this game is going to grow beyond levels of our comprehension within 5 years either way.
Yeah, I think the game has definitely outgrown like even what they thought like was like a like top scenario for them when they started like back in 2017, the current structure we have now. So I think maybe next year we might see like some adjustments because I think they have seen enough like year over year now that okay, like these numbers are big, they'll probably stay around the same. So let us know in the comments what you think about the NAIC red situation. Like, let me know that I'm an elitist or what you think the ideal solution is. But, why don't we move on to just talking about the circuit as a whole and, like, the World's bars. So I wrote down, like, just some points I want to talk about what I think personally are the biggest problems with Pokemon right now. So I think, to me, some of the biggest problems with the invite structure right now is it's very very costly to get an invite. It's very expensive, very cost intensive. It's very time intensive. It's a lot of time committed to get an invite. I think that depending on what area of the world you live in, like there's huge discrepancies. Like someone living in like Midwest America like has a much easier time getting an invite than someone in like Western Canada or like Latin America, for example. I think the attendance discrepancy at tournaments is also a huge difference as well. Like a regionals in Vancouver and a regionals in Orlando are like one's half the size of the other. I think
less than that.
Even less than that. There you go. That's a big problem. Yeah. And I think the big problem that we'll talk about as well is like there's no middle ground between Worlds and like no Worlds. Like Worlds is the only thing to work towards on the circuit. So I've kind of thrown a lot of topics out there. So why don't we pick one to start on? So Aneil, why don't we start on like the cost of a invite right now? So yeah, why don't you give me your thoughts first, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, I kind of already touched on it a little bit. Yeah. Like Pokemon started to feel really spammy to me. Yeah. Like it just feels like and this has been obviously a thing for a while, but the people with the most amount of money, the people with the most sick days at work, people with the most PTO, like they're coming from a place of advantage there, right? Where they can kind of burn that money, they can burn those time off, whatever it is. But just I think the best finish limits themselves and the way they're set are set in a way that promotes spamminess.
Yep.
And that's okay. Like some players enjoy that. Like some guys like to grind out 30 points here, 30 points there, and that's cool, right? But that's where the game is now. That's different from where it was before. And like there had been years where like you could get your invite for under $1,000, no problem, right? You play your locals, you play your local regionals, whatever it is. Obviously, there's a lot of costs involved in this, and with the player base growing, with how these tournaments grow as well, the cost just goes up because not only do you have to spam more tournaments, but you're competing with 3,000 other people to get hotels in Peoria, Illinois, right? Like, and there's not that many hotels in Peoria, Illinois, so your cost per night goes up. Your cost to get there goes up when flights get booked. I was looking at New Orleans, man. It's going to cost me $1,000 to even get down there. And, like, that's insane. And that's just a volume thing. Like, any other time you're looking at it, it's like $700. So I think that's kind of my take on the cost thing. Like, it just promotes kind of, like, the way the structure is right now, promotes spamminess, which drives up cost.
Yeah, I think, so to me, it's like, since, like, let's say, we're just going to use NA for an example here. You need 600 points to qualify. You can get, like, I don't know, what's a reasonable amount from locals? Like 250, let's just say, or 300?
Yeah, the cap is 490. So
okay,
like,
actually, let me say 350,
like 350
you get. Okay, so you need to find, like, 250 points from, like, these major events. Like, I think for the average person who attends Worlds, like, that would probably take them 6 to 7 major events, in my opinion, to get that for the average Worlds attendee. So
I'd say a bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, so let's just say 7, right? Like, we're Canadian, so it's more expensive, but even if, like, you're American, like, I think for me, like, a cheap regional is, like, one where I drive to, like, I split the hotel and all that, it's, like, bare minimum, like, $500. Like, I think that's, like, the floor.
Indianapolis regionals.
Yeah, like, that's, like, the floor, right? So, like, I'm looking at shelling out, like, minimum, like, $3,500 a year if I want to, like, travel to all these. And I think it's, like, way more.
It's definitely way more, yeah.
And, like, the prize money, like, only goes, like, top 32 at regionals. And, like, most people who get their invite, like, they're getting maybe, like, 1 or 2, like, deep finishes a year. Like, they're definitely, like, losing money, which I think is fine. Like, Pokemon's a hobby at the end of the day. That's whatever. But it's, like, I don't think it's healthy that you have to play this many tournaments to get an invite. It's like we said before, like, like the people who played the most would play, like, 3 regionals a year. So there's a couple things I think there. So one thing is, like, we could lower the BFLs and, like, lower the invite bar. Like, I think that would be a much healthier approach. And if you lower the BFLs, it also promotes people having better finishes instead of just, like, spamming, like, top 128, like, 256 all over the place. I also just think that, like, the prizing could be, like, extended. Like, I think our game has grown enough that I think that would be great. But I understand, like, that's not realistic. And I guess, like, also, like, it begs, like, the question. It's like I think Liam put his tweet that was a bit controversial where it's like, okay, if you take away, like, locals from the, like, points, for example, it's like, and you just rely purely on the big tournaments, it's like, you kind of do reward excellence that if you lower the invite bar in the BFL, it's like, if you're doing well consistently at these tournaments, if you're a strong player, like, you can go to less of them and get your invite. So, to me, I would like to see probably, like, the invite bar come down and, like, the BFL go down as well. Or what I would like to see is like, I think one thing that was really great this year is, like, if you win a regionals, you get, like, I think top 2 at NAIC, like, you get an auto invite. I would love if Pokemon made, like, different invite bars. So, like, you can, like, do 600 for the whole year, but maybe it's like if you don't go to locals, like, your invite bar is, like, 300, for example, or something like that. So you give away for people who do really well at the few tournaments they do go to, like a way to qualify without forcing them to commit all this time and all this money to go to like so many tournaments. I just think that's better since you're like rewarding excellence, and it's a more realistic pathway instead of having to go to like all these different regionals and locals every weekend.
I like the idea. I think it's a little tricky to implement, but I like the idea. Like, what if you did like, okay, you top 8 2 regionals, you're in.
Yeah, I think that's a
You
great
top 64
bar.
6 of them or
Yeah.
5 of them, you're in. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's good. So you can keep the point structure for people who do want to grind, because I think from a business standpoint, Pokemon wants to promote like people going to tournaments. Like if you make it like you're
Yeah.
promoting going to less, I guess it's a bad business case. But has our demand reached the point where even if you implement this, it'll go down? So to me, I think that would be nice. Because I think the other thing that it kind of goes hand in hand with cost is it's a huge time commitment to play Pokemon. Like one, you have to give up your weekends, but normally if you're going to a regional, especially in IC, you have to take days off work, you have to fly somewhere, all that. Most people can't do this. Like, you either have to have like a very flexible job where you can like work from home, or you're self-employed. You have to be like a student or something. If you have kids who don't play Pokemon, or even if they do play Pokemon, like if you have other kids who don't play Pokemon, like I just think it's a lot to ask. Like, I'll be like honest. I think like I'm a very privileged person when it comes to playing Pokemon. It's like I have a full-time job that's okay with me working remote when I travel. I make enough money that I can afford to like go to these tournaments, but like I don't think that's realistic for a lot of people, and I think like someone who's like just as skilled as most Worlds players who like doesn't have that opportunity, like they probably can't make Worlds under like the current system. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, it sounds really pro elo, but I promise we're not pro elo like invite structure, and like we'll get into that. Like but I agree with you. I think it comes in the way a lot, and I think a lot of people have jobs that just kind of prevent them from doing this, or they have lifestyles that just prevent them from doing this. And I agree with you. I think there should be more inclusivity to those people. How do you go about doing that? I don't know. And like obviously that is the big issue, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But I think there's like I even think about like my last job that I had. Like I found it so hard to take time off to go to these things, and it in a way changed my life because like part of my reason was like, okay, I want to leave this job because I'm struggling to play Pokemon, which sounds so stupid, but that was part of my decision. And like before, when Pokemon was, hey, you're going to 2 regionals a year, that would have been no problem. You're chilling, right? But I think it changes people's lifestyles a lot, and I think
100%.
it's
Yeah.
it sounds really dramatic, but I think it's a real thing.
So I think, like, just to be clear, like, at the end of the day, like, Pokemon's like a hobby. No one's forcing you to play Pokemon. Like, I don't, like, I think you should
course.
have to go to, like, a decent amount of tournaments and perform to, like, make Worlds.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, yeah, like, it's just, if you want the best people to be there, like, you have to give people a chance who can't play every tournament a way to make Worlds. And right now, Pokemon's decided, like, you have to win the regionals to get the auto invite, which is fine. But I just think that's something they did that I think is good. I just think that's something they can keep, like, pushing as well. So I think that would be really good. So I think, and you know, another point I want to talk about is how much where you live in the world like affects your ability to like play the game. So someone who lives in like Florida, for example, like it's like made a lot of airports, like lots of tournaments, like fairly cheap to play. And someone who lives in like, let's say like, I don't know, like Alberta, Canada, like that's a huge discrepancy, right? It's like one has abundant locals, one has easy access to majors, and then like the other is like maybe like a few locals, like a few League Cups a quarter, plus like expensive flights to like any regional. So this is one that I think is like probably like really hard to solve, because like you can't like adjust for everybody. Like you can't just be like, oh, if you live in this one specific part of the world, like in a region, like you get an easier invite. But to me, this is like another major issue. It's like I'll talk to people like, for example, in Canada, like I talked to a guy I met at regionals. He's from Halifax. He's like, we have 2 League Cups a quarter, and it's like literally over $1,000 for me to fly to any regional. It's like, how am I ever supposed to make Worlds? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to make Worlds. And that's just like, I feel like some edge cases that like, I don't know how you solve like with the current system.
And I don't think you do. Like, I mean, every game has this problem, right? Like, and I feel bad for these people, but if Jimmy from saying Yeehaw in Saskatoon is like, yo, I can't get to where I need to go, that's not just a Pokemon issue. That's an everything issue. That's like, oh, in Saskatoon, we have one major sports team. I can't watch sports. That's just the reality of living in a small town. And I mean, I would love to live in a small town when I'm older. I don't know how I'm going to play Pokemon while I do that. And I think that's just kind of part of it, unfortunately. And I don't know if there's simply a solution for that. One thing I will say is what you give up in travel and what you give up in volume, sometimes you can make up for in locals. So like you said, like if Alberta has 3 or 4 locals a quarter, there's probably not a whole lot of like, and I shouldn't say this about Alberta because I don't know, but there's probably not as much competition in Alberta as there is in Florida for these 4 League Cups. So you, in theory, could have a bit more points from locals, a bit less points from regionals. And I think the current system does a decent job of kind of counterbalancing those things out. Would I like to see a bit less points from locals? Probably. I think there's a lot of, and we'll get into this, a lot of like local warriors, which is good. Like you need local warriors anywhere you go. But I think the fact that you can get more than 3/4 of your invite through locals is kind of absurd.
Yeah, I think the problem with me for locals is just like obviously we're biased again because we live in Toronto, which is like one of the most we have an abundance
Yeah.
of tournaments, but they're all very difficult. It's like yeah, it's like if you live in an area with like not a lot of strong players, like you can just like get your finishes easily. And then if you live in an area where it's very high concentration of top players, like if you're like a newer player, for example, like league cups are gonna feel like impossible. Um, and I think we can talk about maybe locals next. I think the way they are now, I actually think they like disincentivize like a lot of newer players from playing like the
Oh
tournaments.
yeah.
Because like even a league challenge is like that's a competitive event. Like people want points, people are serious. Like they're playing all their like meta decks, league cups especially. So like if you're a new player and you go to like a league cup and like a bunch of people are there who are like worlds competitors or going for worlds and like they just kind of like wipe the floor with you or like they're very serious. Like to me that's not really a good environment to like learn Pokemon or like get introduced to the game. Maybe it's like different. So if you're a newer player who's started playing league cups and challenges, let me know your opinion because I'm actually curious. But I don't. I personally think it could be like really demotivating that like there's not really a middle ground event like for people to go to that like doesn't involve championship points. That's just like more casual and all that.
Yeah, I have a couple ideas for this. And like one of them, like the one that sticks out to me is the one I hate the most, but I actually think this could make sense at some point. What if you capped the amount of league cups a player can go to? So you basically filter out like the top guys early, and like those people will get their finishes. You lower the best finish limit maybe to 4, and you say, "Hey, all right, Ciaran, you can go to 25 league cups this year, but once you're at 25, you can't register for any more, or like your finishes won't count, or whatever." And I
Yeah.
think stipend has a lot to do with this. Stipend has had a very deep ripple effect on who is at league cups. And I think that can be changed. I think even the people going for the stipend don't like it. The fact that they have to win like, respectively, like 16 league cups
Yeah.
in a year. I think it's insane. So that I think doesn't help this whole new player thing. When you have sweats coming back time after time after time, lowering best finish limit maybe would be important. You can limit how many people go to. You can put more emphasis on regionals so people don't care as much about locals, so it leaves it more open for newer players. But I agree with you. Like we've talked about this a lot, and like I say this a lot to people that I coach. Even it's like the people that you play at locals often are harder than the people that you're going to play at regionals because regionals is the only place where people kind of feel like in that safe haven sometimes.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I think is a common trend is a lot of the things we're suggesting is like making people play less Pokemon, which I don't think TPCI likes. But at the end of the day, like I just think it's like I think it's crazy that you have to devote like maybe on average like I don't know, like 10 weekends a year to playing locals, which for some people like they love that. It's I personally like I like playing locals sometimes. I just don't like playing locals like every weekend when I'm like playing like regionals and all that. Like I think it turns into a bit of a grind and I think a lot of people don't enjoy that. So I would personally be in favor of just like lowering the BFL for like cups for example. Like instead of like how many is it now? 6? Like instead of
It's
6,
right now.
right? So like instead of 6, like let's lower it to like 4 or lower it to 3 or something. Challenges like maybe we like don't even like maybe as people have suggested before like take points away from challenges, have like special promos or something that you win for doing a challenge.
That's what I was gonna say.
Like keep
Yeah,
incentivizing people to play locals, but you can do it by like giving exclusive product, like giving like packs, like stuff like that. I think that's good. Like just having some sort of like entry level tournament that's like sanctioned by like the Pokemon company, like for people to play, I think would be a really good starting point, at least in my
yeah,
opinion. So
yeah. And like, sorry, it's so off topic, but I forgot. We're gonna be announcing the the winner of the giveaway at the end of the video.
oh yeah,
I
that's
forgot
not
to mention it, and I was thinking about this because of like, I don't know why it came up, but banana locals came up in my head, and like how many people they get out even for locals. Now imagine if you had special victory cups for banana locals or any sort of locals. Like there are players of these things, and you can filter out some of these like newer players into those tournaments and out of league cups if that's not a like suitable environment for them, right? So there's a lot of pathways you can go, man. I don't think there's one right answer. And
yeah.
like the fact that after what is it now, like 22 years of organized play, we're still looking for answers. Like that tells you kind of all you need to know.
Yeah, I think one counter argument could be like maybe some people do want top players of the League Cup. They want to like challenge themselves, or they want to see the top players there, which I think is a fair point. I just
Hmm.
think it's about like finding a balance, and we can talk about like maybe like the circuit, like the top 16, 22 level at the end. Maybe I just think it's like less relevant since it affects like the least amount of players. But I think for like them, I think like locals is maybe a bit of like a like grind on them. Like I know for like me personally, like I like find like it's very like strenuous to like have to do that every weekend.
Hmm.
I do think like locals should not count for like the stipends. I think the whole point of a stipend when you're doing like that for like worlds or for like the quarter for the ICs, like it's supposed to be like the best players performing at the best. And I just think like there's no way to balance like which region someone plays cups in or plays challenges in.
Hmm.
So I just think finding a way to like I think locals are very important for the lifeblood of the game since most people can't travel to regionals and ICs. So I think they need to be important. So I just think, but like at the highest level, I don't think it makes sense to include them for like points. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the stipend rates has been muffled by locals, so I don't like it.
yeah, I think so as well. Okay, so I think the big topic I think a lot of people I've seen discuss, and like I feel the same way. I think you do as well. Is let's discuss like there's being no middle ground between worlds and anything else. Like there's no tournament that requires championship points besides worlds. There's nothing to strive for like besides worlds. You're on the circuit. Like all the points go towards that. So like what would you like to maybe like see them like start implementing to maybe add new tournaments types that you have to qualify for? Like we can have to, like maybe like make worlds harder to qualify for and add like a buffer in between. What do you think?
And I think we both see pretty eye to eye on this, but I think like you saw we've been talking about the whole NAIC thing and how you want to compete against the best, right? I talked about the side of NAIC where new players want to try out the game. They want to go to a big IC. They want to kind of have that experience. Both of these things are very, very important, right? You have to balance both. But what I do think is your last suggestion. You added a new tournament type. Um, Not like a mini worlds, but like a invitational, so to speak. So you have over 200 CP by December. Here you go. You can come to this tournament, and this tournament can literally just be a regionals. Like it doesn't have to be a big deal. Um, have like mini checkpoints for people to hit as they go to worlds, or have like an exclusive promo being given out at some of these tournaments. Like you hit 300 CP by December, you get something similar to what a worlds promo is. Obviously, it's worth less, but you have something similar, like something else for people to work for. Because I find the hardest thing for me is when I meet new people and I'm trying to like incentivize them to play the game. They're like, "Yeah, so what can I do?" I'm like, "Okay, you can win money, or you can go to Worlds." And immediately they go, "Oh, Worlds. Okay, so that's my goal,
Yeah.
Worlds." I'm like, "Dude, you haven't picked up a theme deck yet. Like, you can't get to Worlds." And I think it demotivates so many people when like Worlds is the only end goal, and there's nothing really like in between to kind of make people satisfied on every step of the way.
Yeah, and you see that a lot. I think a lot of people I know like they kind of drop off playing like the last like third or like even half of the year. Like if they haven't really like reached their like championship point goal for the year by that point, they're like, "Yeah, there's no point me playing. I'll try again next year." Right? It's like I feel like you should be playing Pokemon because like you enjoy playing Pokemon. Like you should play a regional because you want to do well at the regional and see how you can do. Like same with an international, right? So it's like to me, like yeah, people are just demotivated. I think to the point like you should or maybe should be like pride. Like if you finish the year with like 400 CP, like yeah, like you get this like one like promo card or like they give I don't know like a bag or something. I'm just like something like they used to
Yeah.
give out like for example they used to give out if you're top 100 play points like stamped cards. Like why don't we bring that back?
Mhm.
Like for like
Yeah.
encouraging not just people who like get championship points, but someone like Pokeduels who like he loves getting like the play points. He's like why not have like some type
Yeah.
of reward for having play points as well, right? It's just like these are really easy things to implement, like that don't cost them a lot. That I think would really appease the player base and like make everyone happy. So, kind of like in that point, Anil, maybe like let's talk about Liam's tweet here. Like, do you think Worlds is too easy to make right now?
Yeah, I really felt that way last year. I remember going there last year and being like, there is just too many damn people at this tournament, and like, this might be turn on us again and be like, this is an elitist view, and maybe it is, but I really do think that Worlds should be exclusive. And I said this at the beginning of the year. I said I want the Worlds bar to be high, even if it means I don't make Worlds. I don't care. I want the bar to be high. Like I want to compete against the best of the best, and I think this year we kind of have that. Like I think the numbers are under control. Last year in London, there were too many people. And I'm not saying all those people aren't good. Like those people are good. They all got there like through their own invite system, whatever. But there are disparities in region base, like how people get their invites. And I do think some regions are easier than others. But it has to be that way, right? Like just simply off volume of tournaments, stuff like that. Like there is reasoning for that. But I do think this year they corrected it a little bit. Like I think the bar is set where it needs to be. I wouldn't mind an extra 50 CP just to kind of incentivize a little bit further, maybe 650 to kind of have it. But like to me, like when I look at early worlds, like you look at some of the earliest worlds, there were like 50 people, 60 people. That's way too small. I think now a reasonable amount would be about 400, 500. I think that's kind of what the aim should be.
Yeah, it's like interesting. I go back and forth on this. So I think someone on Twitter said like we're projected for like around 1,000 masters to qualify. Like I don't know how many people actually play just because it's expensive to go. Like I think like some countries you have to get visas. So even if let's say like 800 or 900 people play, like is Worlds getting to the point now where, like it almost feels like you're playing a regional. Like there's so many people. Like you said, like so like back in the day when there's 60 people, like is that too small or is that like actually help Worlds feel exclusive, like have heightened importance? So it's interesting too because like I know games like Magic, like their World Championship, like I don't know if it still is, but it used to be like 22 people make Worlds. Like it was that exclusive. So if you want Worlds to be for like the absolute like best of your game, I do think maybe it's a little too big right now. But I don't think I would ever lower the invite threshold without starting to introduce some of these other events that you can qualify for. Because if we make the bar like I don't know, let's say like this is obviously unrealistic. Let's say they made the bar like 1,000 points to make Worlds, right? Like almost like no one would try to do that. Like that's almost like impossible. You have to devote all your time. Like I think that's like probably not it. Like if you're gonna like make Worlds more exclusive, like maybe you have to have like the invite system like run through like making cuts at ICs or something. Like I don't know, but yeah, I think it might have gotten too big now. And I think like Pokemon like is like, okay, well like this is what everyone strives for. So we have to make it like somewhat achievable, even though it's still like a massive accomplishment to make Worlds. Like less than 1% of players are going to be making Worlds. I think they're at the point now where it's like, okay, well, if this is the only thing to play for, like we have to like allow like a large number of our player base in. I'm sure they have a target percent in their mind for each region where like we hope X% of people from these regions like make it. So yeah, I think it'd be cool. Like maybe like they like make a tournament level like above internationals where it's like they happen like maybe like once or twice a year. It's like, yeah, you have to have a certain amount of points at this point in the year to like play in this tournament. And then maybe that feeds into a qualifier for Worlds or something. Like I don't know, I just think like like they should have some other things to work for, and then maybe like if they do that, they can make Worlds like smaller. But at the same time, like Worlds is their like showcase event for the year, and I think from a business standpoint, Pokemon likes having a lot of people there. Like
Of course.
so
Yeah, and like the other thing is too that I like about smaller worlds in theory is that it gives back more to the players. If you go to a smaller worlds, you go to worlds with 500 people versus worlds with 1,000 people, your promos are effectively worth double. And the package you're getting is effectively worth double, and you can kind of make your money back over the season, so it rewards you for like for being devoted, for kind of going through the whole season. You feel that reward when you walk in. Now, promos are already like $1,500 sealed. Like I'm not saying we need an improvement on that. I'm just saying it makes everything more exclusive. Like every little piece of your world championships is suddenly more important to people, which I think is big because in London, in Japan, there's so many people, and there's like random like Pokemon Go people getting like tropical beaches or whatever was given out. What's it called now?
no, not Champions Festival, Paradise Resort.
No,
I
it's a
think.
new one. Paradise Resort.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of like Pokemon Go mans getting these like promos, and they're like reselling them for like $1,500. Sick. I like that. I think that's important. It rewards those players for traveling around, and you get cards in a niche market to help you pay back for the year. So I think the more you can incentivize players to want to play in Worlds is obviously really good without setting the bar too high, and maybe with implementing those little like mini invite championships. Dude, you're laughing. I think it changes everything.
Yeah, I think maybe another thing too is like even if Worlds like the actual invites gets like smaller, like I think it can still be a big event, right? Like people like going to Worlds because it's cool. Like they used to do like the open tournaments, like they're basically regionals on like the last day of Worlds. So like a lot of people would travel for that. They used to do something called the Last Chance Qualifier, where it's like it was an open tournament and like 8 or 16 people who make it through would get a spot into Worlds. Like they could maybe bring that back. So yeah, I think the question just becomes is like, okay, like how much like do you want to reward like the top level for making Worlds? And I think honestly, I personally think the big Worlds right now are fine. I think it's exciting that a lot of people get the chance to play Worlds. And if you really are like one of the best players, like if a Worlds is that large, you should be able to kind of like make your way to the top. So I think it's probably fine, especially since it's the only big tournament we have. But like, yeah, I think if we start introducing some of those mid-tier tournaments, like I think it's fine if they want to like increase the Worlds.
Yeah. I've been like desiring that feeling of like that whole like, okay, I want to play against the very best at Worlds. And I think like, because I guess you and I have had like a different kind of contrast. Like we started in 2013, right? That was our first Worlds. It looks night and day different to what it does now. And I think like I kind of long for those old days where like even if I didn't make it, I don't think I'd be that pressed because like when you do make it, you feel like every single round you're like fighting for your life, and there's like a certain high that comes with that. So I think like I think it's at a good set right now. I think if maybe 800 people make it out to Worlds in Hawaii, I'm happy. But I think anything more than that, it's getting a little excessive.
Yeah, I think
That's just my take.
Yeah, I think one thing to your point, like exclusivity, I think the format we used to use with day one and day two, I feel like day two kind of had that feeling where like everyone's like, okay, day one's like the qualifier for day two, which is like the real
Yeah.
worlds or whatever, right? And I kind of
Yeah.
felt that like I've played day one like I think equally as much if I played day two. It's like yeah, day one doesn't have that same feel. Like it feels like you all feel like you're trying to qualify for like the main event, which I guess you kind of are,
Yeah.
right? But then like people like didn't like that system either, right? Because it felt really boom or bust. It's like you're either day one invite or you're like grinding the whole year for like top 16. Again, there was no middle ground. There was no like, oh, like if I get 800 points and like the world's invite bar is 300 and I'm not top 16, like I just wasted like 500 points. So I think it's interesting what they implemented this year, where like the top 16 gets a round one bye. Like they probably could have implemented that in past years, I think, for like day one, for example. And people have suggested that, like if you have certain bars, like you get that. So yeah, I do agree with you that like you want worlds to feel like you're sitting across from like the best people like every round.
I want to get my ass kicked. If I'm going to Worlds, I want, bro, like just destroy. Like I want to get destroyed. Like 1-5 drop. Like that's what I want.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think one other thing I wanted to talk about maybe was like how we talked a lot about how you have to play all these tournaments. So, like maybe I'll like transition a little bit to looking at like the top 16 or 22 like races across like the different regions. So that's really expensive to play like all the ICs, all those tournaments. And it kind of requires you to like either like not have a job or like have a job that's like super flexible. You like we've seen a lot of people now they're trying to make a living off of Pokemon, which I think is good, but like I don't think it's like economically feasible. Like even if you are like a really good player and like in the top 16 to like travel to all these tournaments and like sustain yourself. So like to me that's another problem. It's like if you want to promote for like your top players, like this like circuit of going to everything, like I think there needs to be a little bit more. So like I know Magic used to have this thing called like the Pro Tour where they like would give out some like subsidies, like even more than we like Pokemon does now. I think that would be really helpful. It just like I don't know, it just like feels like Pokemon like at that level like does just become who has the most free time and funds to like be able to play. And for a competitive
Yeah.
circuit, like that doesn't seem healthy to me. That's kind of how we're determining like who the best are. Like I'll give you an example. Like last year, like Piper, she won 2 regionals, but she couldn't go to like one or two of the ICs, so she missed top 16. She was very clearly like a top 16 player. She had a better season
Yeah.
than I did, but I got to play like day two worlds like automatically, and like she didn't because she didn't get to play ICs. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is. I think it might just be like lower the best finish limits, and like maybe we can transition to that now, like what you and I think the ideal worlds format like qualification circuit is. So like for me personally, it's like I think lowered best finish limits I think is important. It like de-stresses playing every tournament, but if you want to like play more tournaments to improve your finishes, you still can. So I think, for example, like ICs right now have way too much weighting. Like they're way too important.
Yeah.
Like, you can't miss one if you want to like, for example, go for like a top X, or like even if you just want your normal invite. So I think lowering the best finish limit to 2. I'm even open to lowering the best finish limit to 1. I think that's fine because I think maybe it's like the logic is like you can go to the one your region. I think that's fair. So if it's 1.
Yeah.
And like honestly, the ICs pay out so many points that like even if the best finish limit is 1, like it still incentivizes people to try and go. And like the prizes and like the prestige are so high that you'd want to keep going. I would lower like the best finish limit of regionals to 3, I think. And then I would also like introduce, like we talked about, like the different ways to qualify. So if you get like 2 top 8s, or if you get, I don't know, like 4 top 32s, something like that, I think that would be really good. Something I talked about on Twitter, I think as well, is like I think points should be based off match points instead of placement. So that way, if you have a really big regionals and like a regional that's half the size, there's not one record that makes top 8 and one record that gets top 32. I think that's an issue we've seen a lot, so I think that might be something to do. And yeah, I think best finish limits for like locals I think should also go down. Just kind of like take their like still keep them on the circuit because I think they're healthy, but I just think like not forcing everyone to play that as much. And I get that this is disincentivizing people to play as much, but I do think this would help reward excellence and give people the chance who can't travel as much, who can't play as much, like a more fair shot at like qualifying for Worlds.
Yeah, and I think 2 points to this. So first of all, on your point of like people trying to self-sustain themselves playing Pokemon and how it doesn't work, it also doesn't work because playing Pokemon for a living does not advance your career outside of Pokemon, right? Like you could wake up tomorrow and Pokemon could no longer be a thing. The pandemic could hit. You have no competitive Pokemon
Yeah.
for a year and a half. It's really, really difficult to like prioritize your whole life to Pokemon, and that's why I think like this whole like spamminess thing is not good because like if you want people to play this game for a living, cool, whatever, we have to be able to support people playing this for a living, right? Like there has to be enough money involved for people to play this for a living. And if you don't want people to play this for a living, or you want to incentivize people to kind of, I don't know, play sparingly or hit their best finish limits or whatever, we have to change the structure. And I think the way you put it was really good. I think best finish limit, I think one might be a little excessive for ICs, maybe two.
Yeah.
It is difficult to qualify without ICs, I think. So maybe two would be fair. Regionals, six is ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Six is absolutely insane. Like, let's go four, three, even, right? Like, there's no reason why you in Toronto should have to travel to LA to play in a regionals because you need points. Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason why that should happen. And like, when it comes to locals is obviously an open discussion. There isn't probably a real right number.
Yeah.
There's different situations, different people. I like five. I like even six is fine, but just don't count the stipend towards it. Is my big thing. And then after all that, you tally it up. You get another invitational championship that rewards more worlds invites. Maybe you get, I don't know. Like there's other things you can do. Like there's other terms we can involve here that can kind of be tiered up to that system. But like best finish limit six of regionals is my biggest beef right now,
Yeah.
and I think that's insane. And it's same with IC3. It puts so much pressure on for people to go to all these ICs. It's just insane.
Yeah, and I think ICs are the most expensive and like time intensive tournaments. So like I would also like to see either IC points like nerfed, or I'd like to see regional points. Probably this one's better. I think regional points getting buffed so that regionals are much easier for people to travel to, since normally you can do it within your country or within your region, instead of like an IC. And an IC is like if you have an unlucky IC, like don't get points, like your season's like almost chalk sometimes. So that's another
Yeah.
thing too. I think just buffing regionals or like nerfing ICs a bit in terms of importance would be good. So
Yeah. And like people who don't go to ICs are at such a disadvantage,
yeah,
like
it is.
immediately, right?
Yeah,
And there's people like, and obviously like these aren't people in our direct circle in Toronto, but there's people who have visa issues, who have passport issues, who cannot travel for whatever X, Y, and Z reason, and those people are immediately screwed coming right out the gate. So like, as much as we talk about like, oh, we want the best players to play, we want to be competitive with all those people, like, no, we want this game to be accessible for everybody, right? As much as we can. And I think the way this is right now with ICs and how much like emphasis is put on them, it's kind of disincentivizing people immediately if they're like, okay, I can't get a visa to go to Brazil, or I can't get out to EUIC because I have a wedding that weekend, whatever it is, right? Like your season's kind of chalked. It's not great. So I
yeah,
think I agree with you. There needs to be a little bit more balance around the circuit on how points are distributed, and I think there also needs to be a little bit less incentive to play in all of them.
yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, like I think we're talking about like, oh, you have to go do this, this, and this to get your worlds invite. Like you don't have to play for worlds. Like I think,
No.
like if you just like playing Pokemon, like I think it's fine to play like one or two regionals. I think a lot of players do that. But I do think just maybe because the circles we're in or we see a lot on Twitter, it's just like I do feel like a lot of people like they feel like burnout all the time, or like it feels like they're obligated, or like it's like almost like a sunk cost that they've like invested so much time into playing. So I just think
Yeah.
like just this like I guess playing less Pokemon or forcing people to play less Pokemon, it makes it more equitable. Like if you can't travel as much, you can still make worlds. If you want to keep playing as much, you can still do it. If you want to improve your finishes, like you want to go off, or you want to like you just like playing regionals, you want to like win tournaments, make money if you're good enough, like you can still do that. I just think it's the best of both worlds, and I just think like yeah, the game has kind of outpaced where it once was, and I just don't think it's in the healthiest spot right now for most people.
Yeah. Last point to this, and like this is another like counterpoint actually to what we've been talking about the whole time, but I think ICs actually are a great incentive to go and play even if you don't need your invite. I think that's one good thing about them. I think that's the only tournament where you can be like, okay, I don't need points, but financially I can still make a break even off of this or whatever. Like the experience itself is worth it enough that I want to get off my ass and fly to Europe to do this. And the only reason I realized this is because like this year I've only been to one IC. I'm only gonna go to one IC. I don't think I can go to NAIC. I didn't go to EUIC, but my FOMO on both of those weekends is insane because I'm sitting there at home being like, okay, these are the three tournaments of the year where you're like monetary gain can actually out exceed what you're spending. Because like you go anywhere, like you said, it's probably 500 to a grand, right? And to do that, you need to get top 16 or higher, right? So, or sorry, top 32 is a grand. So you need top 16 or higher to any other regional.
Yeah.
So that's normally not a go. Like normal people cannot expect a top 16 every event. ICs are the ones where you can kind of break even, and I think they do
Eh.
a good job of incentivizing that.
I mean, you have to get top 64. So if there's like 2,500 people, that's the top like 2.5%.
Oh, it's no easy feat for sure.
So
But you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel with those. Like
I
it's more
guess.
realistic than me. Like I'm gonna rattle off and win Orlando Regionals.
I think the main like allure for IC is like they feel like a like big event. Like even if like you like don't do well, like they're just fun to go to. Like because it's like international. Like they have all the games there. Like at a big stage. Like the production value is higher. So I don't know. That's just to me like I think the more Pokemon can like make their tournaments like not just about the competition, just like about being events. Like I guess like almost like conventions. Like that is also like good. Like incentivizing like just having fun at these tournaments, even if you're not playing. So
Well, not that they need more incentive, but like even if Pokemon was a little bit more generous with prizing, like
yeah,
you think even if top 256 or everyone who day 2 got that promo, we've talked about this.
yeah,
They got a promo, or you got even man, like bro, give people 5 packs. I don't care, 10 packs, right? Like give people something for doing that well. I think that also helps incentive as well. Like we're looking at whatever top 16, top 32. We've talked about that a million times. But what about top 128? What about top
yeah,
256? Like
100%.
reasonable goals for people to kind of hit here. Even if you go there and you walk out with half a box in your hand, you're happy. You're like, okay, sick. Like I got something out of this. I at least paid for my entry. And it would not be backbreaking for Pokemon to do that. They produce these packs at like minimal cost.
Yep.
So it's not backbreaking. You don't need to think about it as like, oh, each pack is $4 MSRP, whatever, whatever. Like, nah, they created these things for like $1, man. Like they can
Probably
afford to
less.
do this. I promise you. Yeah, I promise they can afford to do this. And I think
Yeah,
that's something they should look at in the future. Like maybe don't expand money, but expand like pack
yeah,
pricing. Like who cares,
yeah,
man?
100%.
So
I'm not
that's something I look
100% sure
at.
how it works with pricing because like I know that for regionals like there's these event companies that run it, but like I think Pokemon should definitely be able to provide
They can
the
supply
yeah.
this. Yeah, they can do
There's
whatever.
no reason they can't supply it. And like you said,
Yeah.
like it like instead of like having to like really finish in the top like 2 or 3% of a tournament, like yeah, like top 10% of a tournament, like you get something. So
Right? And they're making an extra dollar off every pack they're selling right now compared to what it used to be like 2 years ago. People forget about that.
why
Like when Scarlet and Violet came out,
they raised the
MSRP went
price?
up $1.
Oh, okay, well
Yeah.
there you go. So the
Yeah,
margins are
because
even better.
they give you an extra reverse hollow and a guaranteed hollow in every pack.
Okay,
And is
well,
there some money associated with that? Probably. Maybe cost goes up like 2 cents. But they're basically making an extra 90 cents off you each pack they buy. They can afford it, I promise.
yeah, I think they can too. So,
Yeah.
and, we've been yapping for a really long time.
There's a lot of yapping.
There's a lot of rambling as well. I think we were kind of all over the place sometimes, but
Yeah, we're pissed off this week. We're pissed
yeah,
off.
I don't think I'm pissed off. I hope like it comes across. I think Aneil and I are both like passionate. Like we love Pokemon. Like we want it to be like the best it can be. No matter what invite structure Pokemon does, like I think Aneil and I will play just because like we love playing and like
Why
just
not?
that's how it works. Like you kind of just have to sometimes play within the rules of what they're defined if you don't agree with them. So yeah, I'd love to know in the comments like what you guys think about the invite structure, what you guys think could be better for the circuit. So yeah, let us know down below what you think about that.
Yeah. Let us know what's going on. We're giving away another 18 packs of silver, or not silver tempest. I wish it was silver tempest of temporal forces. Get your Altark iron leaves. So you can go destroy the 25% of Charizards you're going to see this weekend.
Yep.
To enter, I don't remember what we're doing, but I'm pretty sure you have to follow both of our Twitters. It'll be in the description.
Yeah, follow both of us on Twitter and comment, subscribe on YouTube and comment. I don't know, what should you comment? We should have
It
thought
was
about
Bucket
this.
Hat last
It was
week.
Bucket Hat last week.
What do you want the invite structure to be?
Yeah, sure, just say what you want the
Simple.
initiative to be.
Yep. Say what you want it to be, and we'll give these away. We'll ship it to your house. We also noticed that like 80% of our viewers do not subscribe to us. So if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, that'd be fantastic. Really helps us out. We're such typical YouTubers
I
now,
know.
bro. I've
Well,
heard this spiel
and if
so
you're
many
listening
times.
to us on like an audio platform, like give us I think you a like or 5-star review depending on which one you're on.
You can,
So
yeah,
give us
like
one
and
of those.
review.
Yeah. If you're not gonna give us 5 stars, don't review.
Yo, that's crazy. Yeah, man. Like I don't know. I haven't checked the Spotify ratings in a long time, but I'm sure we pissed enough people off with the basketball talk. We're like, 1 star to this guy. These guys suck.
I think we were at 5 for a while, but it was only like 15 reviews. Here, I'm gonna check right now.
You know, okay, yeah. You know how you know you made it is if you have haters.
It is how
And
you made it.
We have a couple basketball haters in our comment section these days, which I really enjoy. Please keep commenting. I actually really like it. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
So Neil, we're actually still at 5 stars on Spotify, but we only have 25 reviews. So
I was probably half of them. That's way better than my Uber rating, bro. Every time we go to a regionals, my Uber rating goes down because everyone's yapping in the back seats. I gotta get a new Uber account. But anyways, y'all be well. Good luck in Indy this weekend. Thank you for being here. Comment down below. I want to send y'all some free packs. Thanks.
sweet. Take it
See
easy.
y'all. Peace.
What's up, y'all? Future and Neil here, doing the giveaway for the 18 Temporal Forces booster packs. You see this nice little, very questionable website I've chosen to use for this. Yeah, let's just pick a winner. Alright, Super Gassy. What a name. Alright, Super Gassy. Congratulations. Thank you for your input. Please contact us and we will get those packs shipped out to you. Thank you.